Nobody reads short stories.
Hey everyone, I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Megan.
And you're watching Nobody Reads Short Stories, Cranky Talk edition. And that is where writers discuss writing.
Woohoo! And books.
And books.
So tonight we're gonna switch it up just a little bit, and we're gonna move right into Cranky time.
I know some of you guys are like, yes, skipping all that intro. I will say that while Megan is cranking cranky, to like and subscribe because it helps us become popular people.
Woohoo! So 7 minutes.
This is the fastest we've gone through this, Megan. Like, that's crazy.
I know,
we went from
so
10
fast.
minutes to like 5 seconds.
So I am so excited about this week's book that I read. It's called The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. And it's, I guess you would describe it as Native American horror. And it's about these 4 young men who illegally kill and go hunting for elk on the reservation. And then 10 years later, they are sort of hunted down by the spirit of this elk that they killed. And it's if you're familiar with Joe Lansdale, he's this wonderful short story writer who wrote this series called Hap and Leonard, which I'm a huge fan of. And he's like this dark, pulpy, horror, violent short story writer, but it's a lot of his short stories have a lot of heart. And I love the Hap and Leonard series because it's set in the South, and so being from Mississippi, I get a lot of kicks out of the way he writes Southerners. But The Only Good Indians is it's so great. It's if you're familiar with Louise Erdrich, who's a wonderful Native American writer, she's very lyrical, and a lot of that influence is seen in The Only Good Indians. Stephen Graham Jones, his prose is so immediate. You're right in the scene. You really fall in love with these characters, and the way he describes the horror that is following them is so specific and so rich that it's really scared me a lot.
Like, how is it scary? Like, what is it? More like a psychological thing, or is it more like crazy crap happens?
It's definitely more psychological, because a lot of the fear comes from their
guilt,
connection to the land, their guilt, their connection to tradition. And it's not just a story about Native Americans and their attachment to tradition. It's about anyone who has ever come from a place that they've tried to sort of unstick themselves from and forge their own path, and then had guilt about the things that they left behind or the things that they didn't pay enough attention to. It's really seeped in that feeling of like, what am I leaving behind, and what have I done with my history?
Did you show the book, Megan? I like the cover so much.
Oh, no, I don't have the book because I read it as an
We'll
ebook.
keep talking about it. I'm going to ask you a question so you can just keep talking. I'm going to find The Only Good Indian because the cover is so cool.
It is. It's black, and it has an elk head. And for those of you who might not know, like, elk are gargantuan animals. I've seen them in the national parks,
God.
They are so majestic and huge. And the way that he describes them in the book, you really get that sense of how powerful and formidable they are, but also very dangerous. And yeah.
What's really funny is, like, a week ago on Facebook, I was Facebooking, and it was like things you don't expect to look like they do from the movies. And like elk, they look so majestic in movies, but then they were showing pictures in this Facebook thing, clickbait thing, where one of the examples was an elk, and it was right next to a car, and I am like, this is a freaking dinosaur. Like,
yeah. Yeah. So the first time I ever saw an elk, I was visiting Yellowstone, and I was driving down the road in between Yellowstone. Okay, Jeremy's holding it up. The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones.
You can see my ring light. You thought this was natural lighting, y'all.
So I was driving down this road in between Yellowstone and Grand Tetons, and I saw this elk just comes walking out into the middle of the road, and he's just standing there like in all of his like 9-foot tall elk glory. And I had to slam on the brakes and stop, a few car lengths away from him. And he just stood there and like looked at me like, I'm not moving until I want to move. And then he just clopped away, and it was amazing and terrifying at the same time because I was afraid he might run into the car.
Speaking of horror and like elk, have you read the Twisted Ones?
No.
Read the Twisted Ones, Megan. It's a horror, and I don't want to give too much away, but like basically the whole horror is like from the perspective. Oh, thank you. So this is the Twisted Ones.
Ooh.
I really like this book because it's not just about the horror. So people are like, I'm squeamish about the horror. What's great about this is it's from a really funny protagonist who is a writer. So like in the book, she's like, this is batshit crazy. Like, I wouldn't even write this shit. And like her sidekick is her dog. So she's like talking about her dog. Like she's like, the dog is an idiot and is often doing really stupid things that get them in more trouble. And like at one point she has to save her frickin' doll from the Twisted Ones. And it's so creepy because it's like elk antlers and stuff have reformatted themselves in order to like create this horror. And I know it sounds crazy, but it's a really, really, really good read. And it's interesting that your book brought it up. But I made my boyfriend read it after, and he seemed to really like it too. It's just really funny.
And who wrote that?
The Twisted One was written by, I think she uses a pen name, T. Kingfisher. So, whoop. Megan, the book tried to attack you. Did you see it? Like go like that?
It did. I saw it. It's like being attacked.
Yeah. So we're talking about horror today. That's really interesting. But
yeah, and another thing that I think Stephen Graham Jones does really well is like he's got that Stephen King, ability to really put you in the mind of the characters, even though he mostly writes in third person, and you don't really know the characters are going crazy until they're already crazy, and you're like, whoa, what's,
I love that, but also hate it. I love it because it's just really intriguing. It's an intriguing way to do it, and it grows your empathy for. Oh.
Okay.
I thought I had nothing to talk about. I was just gonna milk your conversation, Megan.
I know before we started, Jeremy was like, oh, can we just talk about movies? And I was like, no, I've got this great book I want to talk about. And look, you did too. See, you just underestimated yourself.
I sure
again.
did. I sure did. Well, we're still talking, so we're cheating. Make sure to, if you're like busy and you don't want to see our faces, check out our podcast. We're on.
We are on Spotify and iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and also Stitcher. And all of our short little Cranky Talks are also on there, as well as the episodes. So please download those for your listening pleasure. And if you want to find us on social media, you can on Twitter using the hashtag NRSS Podcasts. We're on Facebook and Instagram under Nobody Reads Short Stories.
And we also want to be in your dresser. We have some merchandise for you so that we can keep doing this podcast. So we'll have the links below, but it's going to be t-shirts. We're going to have pillows.
Yeah, you can find all of our merchandise is linked to on our website, nobodyreadshortstories.com. Also, just if you haven't turned in your story to be considered for season 2, you have until midnight tonight. We are taking stories, so please go to our website at the bottom and find all of our submission information. And we want to read your story for season 2.
And anything else that we didn't cover, because we don't want to be long in our outro either, check below our YouTube and you'll have magical things to click on.
Woohoo! Thanks, guys.
High five, Megan. That was our shortest one. We probably lost the least amount of viewers on this one.
Yeah, well, it's not short now because you keep talking.
Bye. Done.